Hey guys, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about Dee Brandt, the background of her biography, and give you a little insight to her and her mind. I find if I reading a poem without really knowing, especially in this case, without knowing the background, it's kind of like reading just one phrase out of a book and not knowing the context. Because her poems are really more read between the lines kind of poems. You really got to think about them, and sometimes what looks like the obvious meaning is not, especially with her work. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of info about Dee Brandt. I wrote up a little thing, and hopefully it'll help you to understand her poems a little better, because they really are a puzzle to read and to understand. So Dee Brandt was born on January 31st, 1952 in Winkler, Manitoba. She was raised in a small Mennonite farming village called Rhineland. As a girl, Brandt wore just plain dresses and no jewelry or makeup. She didn't, dress herself up at all. She went to a segregated church, which is like men are separated from women, at least in the church, and was educated in the church system. So, probably Catholic, or I don't know. Brandt was bilingual in English and German. There was two types of German they spoke, high and low. High, I think, was more of a more sophisticated German. The other one was more of a laid-back kind of slang more. Brandt's father was a very articulate and religious man, and he had almost the whole Bible memorized, which is like, there's a lot of books in the Bible. However, he was almost completely illiterate. I don't know how that works, but he could not read or write very well, which is funny because Dee Brandt became a magnificent writer. Anyway, Brandt was in the traditional, I guess she was taught by her father that fiction was kind of silly. It was not fiction because it's fake. There's a quote from an interview she did. "Fiction writing is a place of deceiving and a place of betrayal, and it is and it was. I have found the reading and writing of fiction to be a violation of that oral sense of the world." However, later, when more into her reading or writing poems, she found out that fiction is better, because here she goes on to explain how she felt obliged to stick to nonfiction writing. However, that limited her to very few memories she had. So nonfiction, you have to think about, with poems, you have to think about experiences you had, and everything has to be exactly true. So you can't, metaphors are normally like an idea attached to something that actually happened, but they're not actually real. However, that limited her to very few memories, and in the end she realized most memories are from perspective anyway. Eventually she came to the conclusion that fiction writing was a magnificent way to tell her story. Because with fiction with what she does at least, is she makes you really read between the lines, and makes it more of a puzzle to read. Which is very important to remember, because a lot of her poems may sound like sexual, but I think personally that they have a totally different meaning. She's just using that sort of imagery to express the way she feels about something else. One of her first very large fictional poems was called Missionary Position. My poem exactly. From a traditional Mennonite perspective, Brandt was always, in a way, breaching the rules. So she was always kind of pushing the border, Mennonite, traditional Mennonite is very, very it's hard to explain. They're very kind of almost picky, but it's not that. It's very like, it's not laid back at all, you know? It's kind of tightly wound. According to Brandt, the most controversial part of her writing has been exposing the violence toward young children and child rearing. Child rearing is like raising your children. And the misogyny towards women in a community which calls itself pacifist. So in Mennonite tradition, raising your kids involves, you know, like discipline is like beating them, or like, you know, using the belt. So that's very violent, I guess. And she's a feminist. She doesn't believe, she doesn't like the which is large part of traditional Mennonite is the, you know, the traditional thing that the women are the homemaker, and they you know, make the food and you know, do the clothes and stuff, and the men go out and make the money. She's more against that. Exposing things from the Mennonite tradition is a big part of Brandt's life and work as a feminist Mennonite writer. Brandt left her home at the age of 17 to go pursue her dreams. Now she has quite a high education. I'll read you the places she went and what she got from there. She got a BTH from the Canadian Mennonite Bible College in 1972, an honors bachelor degree in the University of Manitoba in 1975, an MA in English in 1976 from the University of Toronto, and a PhD in English from the University of Manitoba in 1993. She taught English at the University of Winnipeg from 1986 to 1995, and served as a term as a writer-in-residence at the University of Alberta from 1995 to 1996. Her awards include the Canadian Authors Association National Poetry Award in 1996 and the McNally Robinson Award for Manitoba Book of the Year, 1990. Some of Dee's work has recently been set to music, and she has twice been nominated for the Governor General's Award for Poetry. Once in 1987 for Questions I Ask My Mother, which is the book we got our poems from, and in 1995 for Jerusalem Beloved. And so I hope that helps with when you're coming up with ideas for the poems. I don't know if it will. It helped me because she's really a read between the lines kind of writer. It's hard to, you really got to think, or sometimes you just have to put your own perspective to it, right? You're not probably never going to get exactly what the writer was saying, especially in this case. Got to take your own perspective. Yeah. So let Blake and Shamik, and if Cooper's there, do the rest of the presentation. Hope I don't fail.